So you want to enter the exciting field of podcasting and conduct exciting interviews with phenomenal subjects. Yes, your words of wisdom can be turned into MP3 files and posted to the World Wide Web. Well, via the Northstar Nerds 4-step process, you too can become a podcaster. As a means of introduction, do I need an expensive computer, special audio recording editing software, a fancy microphone? And all of this you would think costs big money. But no, all you need is a basic laptop, a USB microphone, and you know what? The Diet Cherry Coke is optional. You need some software, but Audacity from SourceForge.net is free and easy to use. And finally, and we'll spend more time on all of this, you need a microphone. Why a Samson microphone? We'll spend some time on that now, but really this tutorial would work with any microphone, although your podcasting experience might not work equally well with any microphone. In the past, one needed an expensive condenser microphone. This meant preamplifiers, and it meant you needed to be an audiophile, and even more importantly, you needed MONEY. Here's some information from Wikipedia. This is what you needed in the past: a diaphragm microphone and a preamplifier. Once again, it's spelled bucks. Instead, all you need is a willing interviewee. Here we have my wife of some 23 years. Well, she has to put up with me. And then I needed $70 for the Samson USB microphone. Now, why a Samson microphone? Well, it's one of the first microphones that has the diaphragm and powers off your USB port. In addition, it's a Cardian microphone. This means your mic focuses its power and receptivity in the direction of the person talking. In summation, it does just fine. Now we're going to spend some time on your hardware, specifically the computer, and some more information on the microphone. Now, the first thing you do when you plug your microphone via the USB port, you should go into the control panel and select Sounds and Audio Devices. Make sure via the Audio tab and the Sound Recording area that Samson is actually selected. Then, after you've done that, go to the Volume tab of Sounds and Audio Devices. And the reason for that is when you click on the Advanced icon, you'll pull up the volume control. You want to make sure of two things, both the wave and the microphone, that neither of the mute buttons are selected, because if they are, you aren't going to hear a darn thing. And then you'll install some software from Samson, but once again, we'll spend some more time on this later. Now on to software, and this is where it gets fun. And over the next few minutes, we're going to spend time on a bunch of different commands from Audacity, from configure all the way through export to MP3 and some other information to consider. Once you fire up Audacity, you want to make sure it's really using the microphone you think it is. So from the Edit drop-down menu, select Preferences. That will pull up a window, and from the recording area, just make sure the Samson microphone is selected. And then finally, you better click OK to make sure what you've done is actually confirmed. Although you'll see all kinds of drop-down menu selections via Audacity, believe it or not, there's only about 4 or 5 commands that you really need to use to create a podcast, and we're going to focus on those now. So at the top, there's some VCR-like buttons: play, record, stop, and I'm just toggling through them now. That's the pause button, the stop button, and the play button. It's very simple. And when you're recording, you actually want to just use record and pause. Don't click stop, because that'll end the entire stream. After you've done that, you want to make sure your input level was showing up, and this is the sort of blue, whatever you want to call that, in the area where the arrow is indicated. You want to make sure it's showing up about in the 0.5 range. That shows you're getting a reasonable input. Now you use the Samson software to actually amplify your input. I tend to use a 38 dB setting, but you can play around and test it yourself. Once you create your podcast audio stream, you may need to edit it, amplify, or soften it. So we're going to spend some time on that right now. Well, the first thing you do is just position the cursor where the arrow is pointing, wherever you'd like it to be, and click play. And then you can hear selections of your podcast stream. Once you do that, if you find something like my great cough, 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 you can select it and get rid of it. So here I'm selecting it. All I did was drag with my mouse, and once I do that, I select from the Edit menu, Delete, and it's gone. Now, additionally, you may have where maybe a person was speaking too softly, and so you need to amplify, or a person could be speaking too loudly, and you need to deaden or soften it. Once again, you just select the area by clicking and dragging, and then from the Effect, Amplify menu, a little window will come up, and basically there's two things you need to pay attention to. This little tab that moves along and to allow clipping. You need to check mark allow clipping. And then you just drag back and forth and you click preview and test what sort of audio level you're getting. Finally, you need to save your work. Before moving on, you may wish to download or listen to the 3 examples reviewed on this page. You can see the URLs at the bottom. Now that you've created your audio stream, you want to do something called Edit ID3 Tags. Now, what the heck is this? Really, you don't need to know what ID3 stands for, but more importantly, if you select that from the menu option, it pulls up this window. Well, the reason this is important is when you use an MP3 player or an iPod, this is the information that shows up in the viewing screen. So I did a title of Nerdcast, artist myself, album Honeywell, genre, I picked industrial, and then this is a podcasting tutorial, and those will be some comments that will scroll in the screen. So this will actually help your user pull up information via the various menu selections on their MP3 player. So let's move along. The final step after we've edited it, amplified it, deadened it, whatever the case may be, is it's saved as an Audacity file. We just need to export it as an MP3. And it's really simple. You just select that from the menu and save it wherever you want on your hard disk, and you have a podcast. In summation, there's a few other things you need to consider. They're not really software or hardware, but they will affect the quality of your podcast. First, people tend to like a promo or a lead-in. I use the music from 2001 as a short little 10 or 15 second clip. If you listen to podcasts, it's amazing how many have a music lead-in with some audio mixed in at the same time. Next, interview versus monologue. Now for this training module, monologue makes sense, but listen to the really good podcasts. They're almost always an interview, even if the person asking the question really has very little to do with the subject. Just having 2 voices makes it much easier to listen to. Third, distance of the subject to the microphone. If a person is 10 feet away, they're not going to pick up very well. Secondly, if you have the microphone, at least with a Samson, only an inch or 2 away from their lips, it's going to be much too noisy. 2 to 3 feet generally works pretty well. Finally, soft versus loud voices. Be cognizant of the fact of how far the microphone is both from the person doing the interviewing and the person being interviewed. That can cause the difference between soft and loud voices. But remember, you can do some amplifying and deadening of voice levels via Audacity. And now we've reached the end of this tutorial, and we've reviewed a lot of things. Audacity software. From my eContent blog, we have other examples, the Samson microphone, and then some other tutorials. So any of these links here will take you to the appropriate web page where you can get whatever you need. So thank you very much, and I hope you have found this useful. Goodbye.